Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the final episode of season one of our Innovate HPE MOOC. We're so happy that you all have joined us this season, and we hope that you've enjoyed all of our guests this season. It's been kind of a fun experience for both Jessica and myself, getting to know how to do this, getting to know the many guests that we've had on, and we've really enjoyed getting to know all of you and some of the feedback that we've gotten from you. Some of you sent us some great emails, and the Twitter chats on Thursday nights have been dynamite, and we're really looking forward to building this. And when I said we were going to do this again, I always kind of look for these top end home run guests, and Jessica and I were kicking this idea around, and I think she even said to me, she's like, "You can't do this without having Betty Ann Fish to join us for the elementary section of this." So I'm going to give Betty Ann a couple minutes to introduce herself. Her resume would take a half hour, so we're just going to ask her to maybe keep it to maybe the abridged version, and we'll let her introduce herself. And with us tonight, also co-hosting tonight, is Jessica Piccone Cook, our esteemed executive director of Pennsylvania AFERD, and and a fabulous co-host this season. So we'll give it to Betty Ann, and then Jess will start off the night.
Well, welcome everybody. I'm glad you're joining us, and maybe you're watching the Olympics in the background. I know it's a tough call here, Winter Olympics or our live Google Hangout. But thanks for joining. I'm Betty Ann Fish. I've been teaching for over 30 years. I'm the chair of the PE department at Springside Chestnut Hill Academy in Philadelphia, also known as SCH. I teach physical education at the elementary level. I went to University of Delaware, have a master's from St. Joe's. I was the 2015 National Teacher of the Year. I'm a certified Google innovator, a certified Brain Pop educator, Seesaw ambassador. So I do quite a bit with technology, but that'll be my abbreviated version. So here we go.
Well, thanks, Betty. And I think we talked about this briefly before we went on tonight. To me, it kind of brings it full circle to end our season one with you as an elementary teacher who is not only teaching elementary students, but also pre-K. So you're kind of at that forefront of really getting kids excited for the future when it comes to their health and physical activity and how they start to create and embrace the healthy, active lifestyle. So this is the perfect way to wrap up this season. And you've been a familiar face at our state conventions as a presenter. I know you've presented at other state associations and at national as World to present at ISTE and some other places. So can you just talk about the importance of that for you as a health and physical educator, getting beyond, our profession and teaching about what you do with technology to others?
Sure. So I started on this path when a couple of years ago, our school went all in one-to-one with Mac and Apple at the upper school level, a little bit at the middle school level, not so much at elementary, but we really made a commitment to technology. And I so strongly believe that physical education should never be left out of that academic equation. And I am always going to try with my youngest students to incorporate that. So when we went on this pathway, I decided, okay, I'm going to have to retrain myself because 30 years ago when I was in college, we didn't have all this technology. And I don't want to be bored. I don't want to be stagnant. So I had to relearn some things and figure out how I was going to make it work with my pre-K, my kindergarten, my first graders. And that leads me to having a great relationship with the classroom teachers so that I can incorporate more things that they're doing in my practice. And the really nice thing is they take what I'm doing and bring it back in their classroom. So we have a two-way reinforcement there of different concepts. But that's kind of how I started on my pathway with technology. And then I decided we need to spread this word outside of the PE and the health community, because if I go and present at ISTE or other technology conferences, people start to take notice that, hey, in physical education, they're using technology. They're able to do the teaching the 4 C's of education that most people probably don't know. So for me, it was not only did I want to present in the physical education conferences or workshops, but also take that to a larger audience and have PE have a plate at the table. so to speak.
What's the response that you feel like you've gotten when you're in those kind of venues from people who aren't in your profession? Do you get the kind of like surprise that, oh, you're a health and PE person, we didn't know that you did this? Because people are speaking from their experiences from, you know, what they thought health and PE to be. But how do you feel you've been received at those kind of venues?
I think that's you're spot on that, because most people didn't have a positive experience when they were having physical education, and if you ask them that, they're like, yeah, it wasn't all that great. There's a handful that had an awesome experience, and boy, does that make me happy when I hear that. But most of them did not have that positive experience, and they're like, wow, you're really able to touch students in a different way. I'm able to make maybe the struggling student in the classroom shines in my venue or my program, and I'm able to take that back to the classroom teacher, and they're like, wow, they're spatially able to see that. I'm gonna teach math a different way when we're in the classroom. And most of the time, like at ISTE, it's mostly administrators that are there. They'll stop by and they're like, I need your contact information. I need my PE person to get in contact with you after this conference, because these are things that I can envision that person using back at our school, and I would like them to be using more of those tools. So I get a really great reception when I'm there, but I do get, wow, I didn't know PE could do that. I didn't know you could use that tool or use that technology or touch students' lives the way that you are able to. And the pre-K, the 4-year-old, wow, what a great 50 million strong by 2029. That is that group. That they're the group that if I tell the parents all the time, don't ask me how they did this year. I won't know if I was successful until they're 30. And then when they come back and your daughter's 30 and you're telling me they ran a marathon, or I have former students who have opened a yoga studio, I'm like, wow, we had a really positive effect. We were able to make that experience fun and make them understand the importance of staying healthy throughout their life.
Betty Ann, one of the things I've always admired about you, like when I first saw you speak, I was, of course, gravitated to you because of your interest in technology, because that's obviously a fascination and a hobby of mine. But what I've always admired about you, and I think I would guess that this may have contributed to your award that you got with being National Teacher of the Year, but you never seem afraid to put yourself out there and share what you do with the world. And I'm bringing this up because when I go around and I talk about innovation and try to push that and promote that, a lot of times people will say, well, you know, that's great that you do that, but I don't have anything to say, or I'm afraid of doing that. How did you decide that was right? What was that decision like, or have you always been that way?
I probably haven't always been that way. I would say back in 2008, a colleague of mine said, you should really put in to present at a conference up in Boston called by Alan November, the BLC conference. And I thought, I don't think they want to hear from me. I've never really presented on that platform before, and it's really a technology conference. And then when I was selected, I went up and I was amazed at how many people said, wow, I teach in second grade, and the teacher next to me in the classroom, we never share ideas. And I was floored by that. I thought, we're all in it to do what's best for kids. If I have something you can take and tweak and change and make it great for your students, run with it. It's not mine. Run with it. Let your kids have that experience. So once I heard that in 2008, I was like, wow, I need to really try to push myself out of my comfort zone and share what I'm doing. Maybe nothing will work for you, but you know your students best. If you can take a little bit, go ahead and go for it. But the big thing is we teach our students to take a risk. And I'm a real strong believer that I'm going to take a risk. My kids know I'm going to fail. And they'll look at it and say, that did not work, Miss Fish. And I said, well, we're going to work together. How do we fix it? And then we problem solve together, and they own that. And when they own that, it's just such a more rich experience for me and for the students. So I really think they don't see enough adults fail in front of them. And I call it fail forward, because we're always learning and iterating. So it's not so much a failure. It's just that we're going to learn from whatever the situation was.
What's the action? Fail is first attention learning.
Exactly. Yep. I just put up new posters in the gym with that.
Well, and it's interesting that teachers, and I feel like I'm hearing myself. I'm on hotel Wi-Fi because I'm going out to Pete and C tomorrow, so I'm not at home. Very excited. So if I'm freezing or it's getting spotty, that's why. But it's so interesting to hear because I know I went through this where so many of us are teachers and we're doing great things and we teach for a living. We share what we do with students, and it's hard to step up and teach teachers. Where we're so used, and it's second nature to us at that point. And I think sometimes people are afraid to go out in front of their peers and share what they're doing. And that is when you're sharing what you're doing in that different venue, you're opening the conversations for people to share what they're doing. So from you sharing, people are sharing, and it's just a whole big networking experience. So, I encourage anyone that's ever hesitated to present or do anything. It's what we do. It's what we were trained to do. And you can't hesitate when you're thinking about stepping up to try it.
I always like to throw it out there like it's like jumping in the cold water. At first it might be scary and not that great, but you get used to it, and it's not half bad once you're in there for a few minutes.
and when I'm presenting, I learn so much from the audience and the participants. Like they'll say, "Hey, do you ever think of this?" Well, at PS Aford, I did a presentation. I was doing the hula hoop challenge where you build the little huts, and I only ever use 5. And there's 6 hula hoops that come in a package, so you have the 6 colors. But I've only ever used 5 all these years. And somebody said, "Why don't you put the 6th one at the bottom as the base so it doesn't collapse?" And I was like, "Wow, I never thought of that." So that's the nice thing about doing a presentation is you're always going to pick something up and learn and bring something back to your own practice. But part of it was my gym is 4 walls. I'm in internal of the building. I have 2 doors. I have no glass. There's no windows. Nobody ever comes into my gym. So for me, it was really important to just within my building to make quick little videos that we could put up on the plasma so people can see what's happening in PE. And then they're all of a sudden like, "Oh, I didn't know you were teaching that skill. I didn't know you were teaching what I call the hidden skills." They're like, "Wow, we're having trouble with this kind of management in the classroom, but you're doing it here. Maybe we can work together." So it's about sharing, not just in the bigger presentations off campus, but just within my own school as well.
That's well, speaking of technology and sharing with using videos and things like that, you are somebody that I know when I have a technology question, whether it's about Google or anything else, you are the person I'm going to. You've always been on that cutting edge of things. Why is that so important, especially at the elementary level, to implement things like that into the students' daily experience?
For the students, I've come to realize I need to meet them where they are. I mean, kids are using the iPhone, the iPad, the iPods, the Fitbits, the trackers. So if they already have that technology or that tool in their hands, let's find a way to meet them there and just continue with that excitement and get them to use those tools to make themselves healthier, to have a better sense of what they could do outside of my what I call my 4 walls is what I always refer it to. So we'll use pedometers, and then I'll have a student come in. A couple years ago, she came in middle of a snowstorm. We all knew we had just gotten off the buses in the morning. We all knew we were going to go home early. She didn't care. The only thing she wanted to show me, she lifted up her snow jacket with her ski tags and everything and said, "Look what I got yesterday for my birthday," and it was a pedometer. And that's those kind of relationships you want to build. So they already have the technology. They have parents. My mom has a Fitbit. She doesn't take 10,000 steps, so we can have that conversation. So it's not always the shiniest and newest and flashiest technology. It's just creating an excitement and how those tools can make them a healthier person. So we'll use a lot. They'll use the iPads to video each other, do a self-assessment. I use Seesaw as my digital portfolio now. I've gone through a series of different other ones, but Seesaw seems to work. First grade can navigate it. But they have a record of what they do in PE, a written record, a video record, a voice record, and they get to share that with their parents. So the parents get to see that growth over the year, which is pretty cool.
Betty Ann, I know you've mentioned that you're always doing something on the cutting edge of technology. Tell us, are you doing anything with the Winter Olympics right now with your students? And if so, how are you incorporating the Winter Olympics? Because elementary students love all these special events. They love to come and tell us about them when they come in the morning and so on. So talk about what you're doing right now with the elementary students.
We just had our opening ceremonies last week, and the boys' campus is across the street. So we walked out. We're divided up by 6 countries, and the younger students and the older students have a partner that they follow throughout the school year. So they're all on the same country. Siblings are broken up. They might be on 2 different countries. You could be representing South Korea and your sister could be representing China. We went outside and we did our own reading the Olympic Creed. We had our Parade of Nations. The lower school art teacher made a 7-foot torch that they brought out. The lower school boys made it, and it had flames coming out, the top, and we had it in a base. And we took those creeds. The 3rd graders, boys and girls, they just got their recorders, so they played the Olympic fanfare. We lit our flame, and then we came inside, and I've been using the Apple TV and a projector, and I've been showing clips of the different events. Well, today after the weekend, I saw that skier. I saw that snowboard. I saw that figure skater. So they've been watching with their families. And I had a kindergartner today tell me, I watched the backsliding race. I'm like, the backsliding race, the luge? Nope, they're on their back and they slide down this hill, Miss Fish. I'm like, backsliding race. And you know what, Miss Fish? They're going to go head first. And the other kindergarten kid said, that's called skeleton. And that's coming up. They didn't do that yet. So they're paying attention. They get it. But we have great conversations about training, being a good athlete, playing fair, recognizing athletes from other countries and other competitors, and what you do after the medal ceremony or after your race. So it's just been a great experience for all of them. For my younger students, it's their first time ever involved in the Olympics. And those that might not have a family that watches it, they're getting a taste in PE. So some of our events in PE, we figure skated today on paper plates, not too high tech. But the thing is, you have 18 kindergartners all with 2 paper plates and they're going around your gym. It kind of sounds like the skates swooshing on the ice. So we had a nice sound effect going on there. The Winter Olympics, great teaching moments.
Well, speaking of your younger students, you have a unique situation with the age group that you teach. So what is the range of students that you teach and how often do you see them?
So I teach pre-K, kindergarten, 1st grade, and then I coach at the middle school level. For the pre-K students, the school's on a 7-day cycle, so I don't see all the students all of those 7 days. But 2 years ago, the pre-K teacher went over the summer into my head of lower school and said, pre-K needs PE every single day. They need to move. Their bodies need to move. That's how they learn. They need to have PE 7 days a week. 7 days in the cycle. So I got a call over the summer from my pre-K teacher, and she said, you will either love me or you're going to hate me, BA, but you're going to have them 7 times in the cycle. And I jumped for joy because I would love every student to have 7 days to come for PE. But if it comes from me, maybe it'll happen. But when it comes from a classroom teacher who values that movement, boy, did that right away. There was no question about it. 7 days we are. The other grades, I see them 4 times a week, and I see everybody for 30 minutes. So I do see them quite a bit, and it's great. There's a lot of continuity. You can go into a little more depth than seeing them once every 5 days. So I'm very fortunate that I see them so often.
Well, and having them so often, especially from a young age, that really gives you the ability to start to form a relationship with the students as part of your teaching. And when it comes to what we teach and what any teacher teaches, the relationship is the most important part. How do you value that aspect of teaching? Like, what are your thoughts on the foundation of that?
I think the relationship piece is the key. You have to find something unique about those students and make that connection with them. So we do, I do the heart course, the Adventure Challenge heart course. The whole gym turns into a heart for 2 weeks, and we're blue because we don't have oxygen, we're red. And the moment you walk in to a lower school class and you have a student rush up to you with a Jello mold of a heart that they found and said, we need to bring this in for Miss Fish. I mean, that's when you know you're making that connection. And there's nothing sweeter than having a student bring you something or making that connection. I had a senior graduate this year who I've watched. My school is pre-K through 12. And she wrote me a note and said, you know, back in kindergarten, you made a connection with me. You said something to me that made me love PE. And then when I was in 7th grade on your hockey team, and she's like, I wouldn't be the person I am now, but I hope there's a kindergartner next year that has that same feel. And that's really what keeps you going and makes you know you have an impact and are making a difference. With the younger students, as Randy said in the first one of these, he said it's not about changing behavior, it's about creating the behavior. And if I'm lucky enough to create those positive, healthy lifestyle choice behaviors at a young age, then I think we're on the road to something, on the right track.
No, you're so right, and I love that. I love that quote that Randy said about creating behavior, because really, it's easier to create that habit and make it a good one than it is to continue with, you know, try to change bad habits. You often tell me too, like you know, we talk about innovation a lot, you and I, and you often tell me teachers are already innovative; they just don't always know it. So tell me what you mean by that, and kind of dig deeper into that, and maybe we can help someone in the audience or someone that listens to this recording later understand how they already are innovative and some ways that they can go about being innovative in the elementary classroom or even their other gyms as well.
So we talk about, I like to refer to it as the hidden skills that we teach in physical education. So many people, like we talked about earlier, did not have a positive experience in PE. So their mindset is they're just playing with the ball all day. And that's a really unfortunate experience or place for people to think that's what we're doing. So you talk about the 4 C's in education. So I refer to a lot of things that we might not see in physical education textbooks per se, but the 4 C's of education, such as critical thinking, communication, collaboration, creativity. We do that on a daily basis. Kids have to be able to use their critical thinking skills to work with a partner, to work in a large group, or even to work by themselves. They've got to be able to communicate in our space. Nobody is in that small space with a lot of kids that if you can't communicate, then things aren't going to run smoothly or they're not going to be learning anything. That collaboration or creativity. I give my students a lot of choice with the equipment. You pick the equipment you want to use. Here's what we're trying to accomplish. And I'm not necessarily saying this is the right way to do it. So maybe you come up with a better way to do the challenge that I'm giving them. I use challenge all the time. They're like, Miss Fish, your favorite word is challenge. You're going to challenge us. So I want them always to be thinking. And then my second phrase is make a good choice for you. So maybe I see somebody who's off task. Do I want to follow that way or do I want to make my own choice? And they hear that language from me in the hallways and it starts to sink in with them. But we're teaching those 4 C's of education that people don't think of. We teach those 21st century skills, problem solving. There's a lot of problem solving that goes on during our classes, whether we're making a new game. How are we going to do that? Well, I want to be the leader. No, I want you to follow me. So there's a lot of those hidden soft skills that I don't think if you don't come into a PE program and sit and watch it, that people have any idea we're doing that. So for me, it was making those short videos to push out to my school community showing, hey, look, we had to build a structure out of 5 hula hoops without any other props or anything to help us. And then we had to be able to talk Miss Fish through the hoops. And then we all had to get through the hoops. So how are we going to do that? So I think using videos and making, again, I used to make really elaborate videos and they'd be 2 minutes and I'd have a title and I'd have this and I'd have that part. And I realized parents want to see their child happy and having fun. So a 30-second clip, now the clips I put on my school websites are just 30-second clips of what's going on in PE. First grade was curling today. So it was, boom, I just filmed them all down the row, watching as they're throwing their stones to the other end. And then that will go up on the website, but I won't put it in iMovie and add to it anymore because they really just want that quick hit. So for people trying to help others in their building or families know what's going on, a 30-second video says a lot.
Well, speaking of those videos too, is for any of our listeners out there who may be interested in catching those clips, can you tell us what your website is so that they can go and find those?
It's pretty
and then type it in our document here, and I'll post it in the description. Sorry to walk over you.
It's a little bit longer, so I will give it to you at the end there.
Okay. Yeah, we'll post. I'll tell you what. We'll post it. He's going to send it to us. I'll post it in the description on the recording, so that if you're watching this after the fact, you can go to the website and it'll be down in the description of the recording.
Perfect.
So before I turn it back over to Jessica, I just have a kind of a question that came up from what you said. One of the things that I was impressed with is that you're modeling failure, and then as you're in the gyms, you're having the kids walk you through things, and you seem to be modeling choices and challenges and things like that. Is that something that you're seeing outside of your gym too, across your school? Has that become contagious from things that you're doing in your gym, or is that just something that you caught from everyone else? Or talk about the modeling that goes on school-wide, not just maybe with administrators as well as classroom teachers that you're obviously doing in your gym too.
So I do. I fail a lot when I'm doing the dance units, when I have to choreograph for our big end of year event for first grade, and I think I have this great dance going, and then we all get in the gym and I tell the kids, I don't have all of you at home when I do this dance, and I don't have this many neighbors that come to my living room, so it's might not work. and then we fix it because it doesn't work. But we did a couple of years ago, we started following the Stanford school, the D school, so the design thinking process. So most of our thought is going through that empathy, prototyping, and this goes through anything that we're doing across all divisions, all grade levels, and then, like I had mentioned, iterating and then coming up with another finished product. So that failure kind of goes across the whole school for us as a community. We also have something called CEL that the students take in middle and upper high school, Center for Entrepreneurial Leadership, where they design, they come up with a project and they do the research on it. They get the information, they design it, and then sometimes they'll try to pitch what they're designing. But that goes with a lot of hiccups, is what I call, along the way. They think that something's going to work, it doesn't work, so they have to go back and change it. So that kind of failure, kind of setback, obstacle, hiccup goes through the whole school. And people know, and everybody knows that that's part of the learning process. But that hiccup, you don't stop. Then what's the next step? How do we improve upon it? That mindset of, okay, we're gonna learn from it and we're gonna move forward. So it's never stagnant and we just put it by the wayside.
Well, and that's such a powerful statement for the students to get that across the board at your school. It's not just one teacher that's doing that. I mean, you've created a culture in your buildings and what the kids are exposed to.
Yeah, it's great. And you know, everybody contributes to it. So if I see somebody having that hiccup out in the hallway, we're able to just support it and move on, we go. And the same thing, the students give it right back to us as the faculty. Hey, we can make that better. We can fix that. Let's come up with a solution. And that's a really cool moment when it's the students doing that empowering. Yeah.
Well, speaking of students, to kind of wrap it up tonight, we know as teachers we are forever students, and I know that you are somebody who is constantly reading and learning. So what are some of the things that you seek out outside of our health and phys ed world when it comes to either books or TED Talks? What are some of your go-tos, and what are you reading now?
Okay, so funny you should say, but reading now, and not because there's fish on it, but I'm reading Hacking Leadership right now. I'm about halfway through, and it's great. And it's kind of geared more towards that school principal, but I think everything in there, anybody can take something, relate to it, and then transform their practice. So maybe you implement one of those things in there. one of the 10 ways to hack leadership has to do with positive notes and sending positive notes to your faculty and staff. Well, I do positive PE notes, and I have a little post-it that says Miss Fish's positive PE note, and I write a note. If I catch you doing something positive, helpful, supportive in the gym or in the hallway, I write a note, send it home, I sneak it in their backpack, and home it goes. And then I'll get an email the next day. Wow, we had so much fun discussing whatever the positive note was about. But that doesn't take a lot of time, but that little note home really goes a long way. Just like in the Hacking Leadership, writing a positive note to your faculty members makes them feel appreciated, makes them know that somebody noticed. And that's really cool. So that's my book right now. I was thrilled when P.S. Aford had George Couros there because he's been at my school, and I loved listening to him when he was at SEH. And then to hear him again was awesome. Simon Sinek for the Why. I love that book. Like, it makes you really reflect on why you're doing what you're doing. And is this what you want to do, or do you need to iterate your why and do something different? But any kind of book like that makes me reflect on my practice, think about what I'm doing with the students and how I deliver my program is something that I'm going to pick up and try to read. So those are my big ones right now. As I look up here, I'm reading No Fear of Coding also, which was a book I got when I was at ISTE because I really believe that there's a place for coding in physical education, that I work with my students on that. So I kind of pick up anything that, and if it's something I can't relate to, I'm going to figure out a way to make it work.
I just love that. And you mentioned design thinking when you were wrapping up in your last segment, and it just made me think of a book that's a really good book by Dave Burgess Consulting that's and it's called Launch by AJ Giuliani and John Spencer, and they incorporate design thinking into education, and it's really a great book. So that one's one that's on my list to pick up. I haven't read it yet, but I've just heard phenomenal things about it. So Jessica, did you want to jump in here before we make our big announcement?
I was going to say, Betty Ann said coding. She's going to keep you on here for another 2 hours because that's your language right there.
Oh, I know. I just totally geeked out.
Well, I had one of my professors when I was in grad school, Dr. Allman, had said he would be the person that would go to a conference, and the last session of the last day, he was still sitting in there. And people would be like, the socials are going on. This is happening. Why are you here? And he's like, I go to these things to pearl hunt. He said, if I can pick one thing from everything I go to, even if it's not applicable to what I do, that's what I'm looking for. And I think that's what you said about hacking leadership, where it's geared towards this is what, because it's showing that you're always looking like, how can I take this back? How do I make this relate to what I'm doing? How can I make this something for my students? And I think that's something that we as educators really need to make sure that we're doing. Don't always think that things don't apply to you. Think, how can I take from this and apply it to what I do?
Because it all comes back to me is what's best for kids. I work with the youngest students, and what's best for them? What is going to make them want to lead a healthy and active lifestyle for life? And if I can take one thing from what you talk about, or one thing that Todd talks about, and bring it back and use it with my students, and then tweak it, because I'm all about tweak whatever you hear and share it back out. So if I can do that, so it's all about what's best for kids. And that's the beauty of it.
Amen. And that's why we're all here. And honestly, like listening to you talk about the leadership book, that was exactly what I was going to say. Good friend of mine who's a principal, when he got his first job, he said, Todd, he said, being a principal is not that different than being a teacher. He said, your kids just get older. So, and I believe that through and through. In my own department leadership, there's still people that you say a word and they run with it, and there's more people that want direction and are good helpers and followers and so on. So, so I appreciate that. Speaking of hacking leadership, it's kind of interesting that that's the book that you're reading. And this was, believe it or not, people, this was not planned at all.
No, it wasn't.
When I called Betty Ann earlier today to kind of just catch up and say, hey, you ready for tonight, and go over a couple of things before we did it, she's like, yeah, I'm reading that book, Hacking Leadership, that Jessica tweeted about. Well, interestingly enough, so am I. And the reason for that is because this gentleman right here at the bottom, Joe Sanfilippo, which is in backwards right now, is going to be our keynote at the Seven Springs Convention this year at PS Aford. And we are so excited to have him. He's speaking tomorrow at Pete and C. So if any of you have any last minute needs professional development, join us in Hershey tomorrow. We're going to go see him tomorrow and catch up with him. And on top of that, we are going to announce season 2 of the MOOC tonight, and then we will hear a lot more publication about it soon. But we are going to build season 2 of the MOOC starting. It's either going to be March 26th or April 2nd. We'll confirm that by the end of next week. And we're going to build it around the book study, Hacking Leadership. So we just think the book is so phenomenal, and we think that you can do so much with it in the classroom that we're going to try to bring it to you. And we're going to offer you an opportunity to purchase the book from Joe, and he'll personalize it for you. We're going to dig into it. Joe is actually going to be on the season of the MOOC. And when I have the full guest list confirmed next week, we will announce that as well. But hang in there. This MOOC has been it's been therapeutic. It's been learning. It's been amazing. I've enjoyed every minute of it with you this season, Jessica, and Betty Ann. Having you on as a guest has been absolutely as amazing as I thought it would be. So we really appreciate you being here.
Well, thanks for this opportunity to share my ideas and my thoughts, and for putting together the MOOC. It's been great listening to the other 5 topics and conversations. But again, every time I listen to them, it made me think of one more thing I could be doing. What could I change, and what can I do? And not only that, but it reinforced that a lot of the stuff that I do, I'm on the right track. And I think we all like to hear that as well. So lots of great stuff this season in season 1. I can't wait for season 2. And I already have the book. How am I getting it personalized? That's all I have.
Well, you'll have to come to convention next year and get yours signed. Jessica, I'll give you the final word.
No, thanks again, Betty Ann, for joining us. This just, for me, like I said, you kind of bring it full circle where, you are teaching some of our youngest students that are out in the school system, and you're really the foundation for the experience that a lot of them are having moving forward. So to you and to all the teachers, no matter what level they teach, I said this earlier, I think sometimes, and I say this as a former secondary health and physical education teacher, I think when we get stuck in a rut at that level, go to an elementary school and watch that age group and how excited they are and how curious they are. And it will, it'll reinforce and re-energize you. So to you and to everybody else that's out there doing what you do every single day, thank you, and keep doing what you're doing, because those students deserve it and they need it. So thanks, Todd. Thanks, Betty Ann. And I can't wait to see the crew in the 2nd season.